My TB-3 won't talk to my computer. Many moons ago, I had a question that came in. I actually had several questions around the same sort of subject about the TB-3 and not being able to connect the TB-3 to your computer and use it through Ableton. And I kind of put the questions to one side, thinking, what I'll do is I'll answer those questions. I'll sort of collate them up and answer them. So I've just recorded a session about sort of general MX1 queries, and I thought now what we would do is we're going to have a look at this specific TB3 query. Unfortunately, between those questions coming in and now, YouTube changed their policy on holding questions and managed to wipe out a load of questions that you guys had answered. So I can't answer you individually like I normally would have done. So I'm going to record a video for it. Anyway, the question is, how do I connect the TB3 to Ableton? So there's several things that you need to do for that, and we'll sort of kind of talk our way through the diagnostic process.
Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon.
Okay, first thing is, have you got the Roland TB-3 driver loaded on your computer? This device is not class compliant. What do I mean by class compliant? Well, class compliant basically means that the device tells the computer how to interact with it. If you go and use a Behringer device, I have a couple, but I'm thinking of the RD8 specifically. When you plug the RD8 into your computer, the computer knows that it's an RD8. It knows how to send instructions backwards and forwards to the RD8. If you plug a Roland TB-3 into your computer will not actually know the TB-3 is there. Even though it's plugged in via USB cable, the computer will not know it's there and therefore will not know how to interact with it. You have to load a driver onto your computer. This is where it becomes really interesting. I am recording this in November 2021. Okay, at this point, Apple have launched Big Sur. And Big Sur and Catalina to that have made changes to how the Apple operating system works. So at the moment there is a driver for 10.15, and that should theoretically work on Big Sur, which is 11. Okay, because both of them support a fully 64-bit operating system, and the driver that has been produced for 10.15 is a fully 64-bit compliant driver and therefore should work on Big Sur. I don't have a Big Sur machine to test that on, and that's the reason why I don't have a Big Sur machine to test it on, is because I've got older kit that Roland no longer support. So I've kept my Apple machine at 10.15, which is Catalina. On the other side of the fence, Windows 10 has been around for a while and has a longevity of support, and there are a number of drivers available for different components for Windows 10. There is a driver available for the TB3 for Windows 10. There is no driver available for the TB3 for Windows 11 at the moment. Well, there wasn't when I looked at the Roland website earlier on. So be warned, if you're going to buy a Windows 11 machine in the future, and we are coming up to Christmas, and many of you may be thinking about buying a brand new Windows PC to run your music studio, beware. Windows 11 may not run the stuff that you've got in your studio that requires USB. It's a pet gripe of mine. Many people should be getting on this bandwagon, but the drivers are not being updated to support the later operating systems, and therefore all of a sudden you're going to have dead equipment. So number one with the TB3, have you got the driver on your computer that will allow your computer to interact with the TB3? Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at, can your computer see the device? So the first thing we need to do, and I've done this from, I'm on a Mac and I'm in MIDI Studio. I'm actually in the audio part of the MIDI studio at the moment, and what I'm going to do is I'm taking power off the laptop, and I'm going to actually switch this on. There you go. And with a bit of luck, in the window here we should see the TB-3, and we do indeed see the TB-3 here with 2 inputs and 2 outputs being shown. So I can actually use this as an A to D to A converter or an A to D converter, because I can then, oh, that's probably done it the world of good, hasn't it? I can then use these 2 audio outs. I never will, but I could if I wanted to. So the next thing we need to do is we go over and look at the MIDI devices. Now, where are the MIDI devices? There, show MIDI Studio. And MIDI Studio loads, and I'm just going to take that off. And let's have a look and see what devices. And there you can see in MIDI Studio, it has found the TB-3, and it can see the TB-3 and the properties of the TB-3. Okay, so that's quite good, because that now means my computer can see my TB-3. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to go into Ableton and we need to go into Preferences. And what we need to see is, can Ableton see the TB-3? So there's the TB-3 for audio, and it can see my TB-3 for audio, and I can set which audio channels I want coming in. You can see the audio there on the devices, audio devices, which is Ableton preferences are currently over the top of that particular screen. Now we go into MIDI, and you can see that actually I'm not showing the TB-3 here at all. Nah, I'm looking at it straight off. And what I should be able to see is I should be able to see the TB-3 on the screen. I was looking at the top section. I shouldn't be looking at the top section. I should be looking at the bottom section. And it's telling me that it can see the TB-3 from both an input and output perspective, and I can see the individual parameters around the TB-3 in the screen. And what I need to do is I actually need to switch what I want on. So if I want to record this to a track, I need to switch that on. If I want it to output to the TB-3, I need to switch that on. And if I need it to sync between the two, so I want the clock on this to be sunk to Ableton, I need to switch that on. And if I wanted to remote control it, I could switch those on as well. That theoretically is the setup to get this to talk to Ableton. So now if I go back into Ableton, let me bring Ableton back up on screen, and I go to my MIDI, I can configure it to talk to the TB-3, and I can also configure it on what channel I want it to talk to. So typically I use this on channel 9, which is the channel I use for bassline. But that gives you an idea of how you can record in the MIDI from this. If you wanted to record the audio in for this, you would go down to the audio area and you would tell it that you wanted to import from the audio system. Of course, on the assumption I've set the audio up for this. So my input device has to be set to TB-3, like so. Now if I go back to Ableton, come on back to here, and I look for more audio devices, I should see external in and inputs 1 and 2, external in, inputs 1 and 2. And the reason why it looks like that is because I've now told Ableton to receive from the TB-3 audio input, which it just sees as an external in, and it sees it as external in 1 and 2. If I change the input to something else, it will obviously then, let's go back to preferences, and as you see, the audio driver is core audio driver, like so. As you can see, I've got mono inputs 1, 2, stereo inputs 1 and 2. I'm not going to go into too much more about the configuration on this particular video, and the reason I'm not doing that is because everybody wants to configure this slightly differently. Now, the way I normally have these things configured, if I'm honest, if I'm running it through the MX1, it will be a channel on the MX1. Therefore, I'll be sending a MIDI out to it and coming through a channel on the MX1. If it comes in separately, then what I do is I build an aggregate device, and that aggregate device effectively is then presented to the DAW, and the DAW will then select one of the channels on the aggregate device. And I can build up to, well, yeah, I mean, I can build up to as many as I want, but typically I have about 30 odd channels coming into Ableton at that point using the aggregation function that gives me the audio in. I'm hoping that answers some of your questions, but if it doesn't, it's probably created more questions than answers, so be it. I'm hoping that that video gave you some useful information about this little device. But for now, watch out for the next video, which will probably be about 7 days behind this one, again on the TB3. But for now, live long and prosper. See ya. Bye bye.